If you want to watch exclusive Naruto Lemon, then you should go to my Boosty. Now there is a 20% discount on 3 level, which is in the description under the video. Description: he was awarded many titles, but she became the only one who saw him as a simple man, with his weaknesses and desires. And she gave him the most precious gift in the world, she gave him her friendship. And he will do anything to make the friendship grow into something more. Chapter 1: Ramen Spiral. Itachi slowly, carefully examined his arsenal. Scrolls were laid out in front of him, where kunai, shuriken, and a couple of chains were to be sealed. It is necessary that the weapon be in perfect order, sharpened, and smeared with poison. Ready for battle. There will be no time to be distracted while on task. Are you leaving again? A sad voice came from the window. Itachi shuddered involuntarily. He didn't even hear Shursui sneak up. However, what else can you expect from the famous phantom? From early childhood, busy with studies and the early awakening of the Sharingan, Itachi remembered only Shursui by his side. That time was like a feverish race. They studied and trained all day long, sometimes collapsing from fatigue right on the court. They had no time at all for social adaptation, as my father called it. Two geniuses of the Uchiha clan, talented shinobi, warriors. Hope and support. Itachi learned to wear a mask on his face early, even before he received his well-deserved porcelain raven. His defensive reaction, which only Shursui was able to overcome. As a result, when the race ended and Itachi woke up, he found no one nearby except his parents, Shursui and his father. Even his younger brother managed to keep him away from himself by being constantly busy. And he couldn't do it any other way. He had no one to return to the mansion to. He forgot what it was like to enjoy life, to feel bright emotions. Smile. Calmness and utmost concentration on missions became his constant, faithful companions. You're going to completely screw yourself up, Itachi. His friend shook his head disapprovingly. Take a break, rest a little. There is no point in proving anything to our clan anymore. During the attack of the demon fox on the village, the Uchiha, contrary to all orders, entered into battle. Although not at full strength, they managed to hold on to the Kyuubi. Each of them was closely monitored, each had a non-Uchiha partner, which served as the main proof of their innocence. The elders suggested that the Sharingan, which the fox was subordinate to, was stolen from clan shinobi who disappeared during missions. The Leaf Uchiha were acquitted on all counts. The remnants of the clan. That night became fatal. 105 people remained of the entire clan, exactly half, most of whom were women and children. Itachi remembered how his mother cried, still not taking off her Jonin vest. She buried her face in Sasuke's light blue blanket to somehow muffle her sobs. And her father, a stern, proud father who cannot stand tears and weakness, simply put his hand on her shoulder. This spoke more to Itachi than his entire previous life. The father loved them, mother, brother, and him. I can't sit idle. He shrugged indifferently. You'll ruin yourself. Shursui frowned. And for what? For money? For fame? Titles of genius? For what, Itachi? Itachi rubbed his face with his hands. Only alone with a friend could he show such, albeit small, weakness. Because I don't know how to do it any other way, he said simply. They didn't teach me. I am a fighter, former ANBU, and so on, so on, so on. But you are no longer the connecting thread between the clan and the village. You have the right to rest, the friend convinced. Go to the springs, unwind. We have a great selection of doctors this year. A wry smile crossed his lips. After the Kyuubi's attack, Itachi saw his clanmates' eyes literally open. The Uchiha could not afford to continue to sit in the swamp of hatred and lust for power. It is better to have influence now than to make bloody plans for the future that may not even come true. Like a kick to action. Fugaka suddenly remembered what his wife's lively, young friend, Kushina Uzumaki, had told him. Using her water techniques, she discovered hidden hot springs nearby. Using earth and water techniques, it didn't cost anything to bring them to the surface. And the head of the clan got down to work, during which he discovered that the fourth had left them an interesting inheritance. 2 contracting firms agreed to build everything quickly and relatively inexpensively. The hospital agreed to send its Irenans for internships and increase their experience. The personal order of the fourth Hokage, which even Sarutobi, who had risen to power again, did not dare to challenge. This is how the wellness center appeared. Hot springs, massage, treatment with herbs and special ointments, even chakra, delicious food and pleasant, friendly service. The women of the clan did not disdain cleaning, washing, and washing dishes. The Iranians improved their techniques, improved their control over chakra, and tested their knowledge. Everyone was happy. The daimyo even came to them specially, to look, rest, relax. And now, in the 11th year, the Uchiha clan has again become one of the respected clans in the village. They were no longer frightened, they were no longer whispered behind their backs, calling them red-eyed demons. And remember, finally, that you have a younger brother. With a quick movement, while Itachi was still not out of his thoughts, Shursui flicked him on the forehead, as the guy himself once did with his younger brother. Follow him to the academy, practice. Do you think so? Itachi said uncertainly. Needless to say, the genius of the clan was afraid. He was too alienated from his beloved younger brother, believing that a clan rebellion was inevitable. I tried to protect him from unnecessary suffering. I think so. Shursui nodded joyfully. And I'll go on a mission instead of you. He grabbed the piece of paper. Right now I'll run to negotiate with the Hokage. And disappeared into the Shunshin. Itachi walked slowly towards the academy. Shursui kept his word, and the next day he left for a long mission, leaving his friend alone with his doubts and worries. Unless he waved his hand goodbye. And also, all this time, Sasuke's best friend was brainwashing him about the big brother complex and exaggerated care. When Sasuke, with a most serious look and a slightly mocking look, quoted Itachi some especially vivid expressions, including the advice to wait for your elder brother to come to you, and he will come, he won't go anywhere. He didn't know whether to cry or laugh at such friends' concerns. And Sasuke just hugged him and dragged him to training. I used to be offended. Sasuke threw a stone, watching the circles disperse in the water. And then Shursui explained to me what you were trying to achieve. How worried you were about me. Only, he clenched his fists, his cheekbones turned a little red. Sasuke carefully looked away. Don't do that again, big brother. I won't, Otsuto. Itachi flicked him on the forehead out of habit. He didn't even notice how his little, stupid brother grew up. Sasuke winced and pouted. Despite his age and status as a student at the academy, he was still a child. So funny. Lost in his thoughts, he still mechanically and habitually indifferently noted familiar faces. Shiraniginma, the fourth's loyal Senbon knight, seduces the flower shop girl by lazily moving Senbon from one corner of his mouth to the other. And how is his jaw still intact with such a toothpick? Nearby, the inseparable Kotetsu and Izumo, who were never called anything other than Kazumami in the village, are looking at something on a weapons counter. Old Man Tuchi's shop is very lively. Mitarashi Anko is arguing over the next portion of his favorite dango, except for hissing. However, the owner is not much inferior to her, at least he grins in the same way. It is clear that the argument gives both of them great pleasure. And Itachi knows that in the end the old man will still give a discount to his regular customer. It wouldn't be a bad idea to visit him one of these days. The train of thoughts was interrupted by something crashing into Itachi at full speed. On reflexes alone, the shinobi dodged the heavy books falling on his feet. With his thumbs quickly, without thinking at all, he threw them up, where he caught them with one hand. The second he tenaciously held the attacker. The enemy turned out to be a short blonde, looking admiringly at the neat stack of textbooks in Itachi's palm. Wow! Cool, Daikbeo! She exclaimed loudly, turning to the adult. For a moment, Itachi wanted to close his eyes. The girl turned out to be bright. Golden hair, like the rays of the sun, bright blue, sparkling eyes, a shining face. Tanned, lively, agile, with funny, tendril scars on her cheeks. Emotions were flowing like a fountain, and the girl did not consider it necessary to hide them. Out of the corner of his eye, he noted the absence of a bandage, which meant he wasn't even a genin yet. Most likely, she was in a hurry from the academy. Inwardly, the Uchiha blushed painfully as he thought about what Shursui would say if he knew that the ANBU captain had been taken by surprise by an academy student. Here. He handed her the textbooks. Thank you. She seemed to smile wider than her cheeks. Thanks for your help, uncle, she shouted, already running away. And just the tip of a long, cunningly braided braid flashed in the air. Uncle? Someone chuckled behind him. Itachi turned around and saw his younger brother. He looked with interest after the running girl. Shursui, don't say a word, the elder warned, putting his index finger to his little brother's nose. Of course, he said cheerfully. I think I'll show him the pictures too. He has Mangekyo. I'll whip you, Itachi threatened. Will you catch up? Sasuke grinned and immediately took a low start. Itachi rushed after him, for the first time in his life, surrendering wholeheartedly to the process of tomfoolery. Probably the short meeting with that girl gave him a boost of energy. The genius of the Uchiha clan could not explain his behavior in any other way. Summer this year has clearly decided to fry people with the scorching sun. The heat made the air above the hot ground tremble like an unsteady haze. To the delight of the opposite sex, the girls undressed and wore thin, translucent dresses, but the shinobi had a hard time. According to the charter, they were required to wear a uniform in any weather. Therefore, no one in green vests was visible on the street. They, like cockroaches, scattered to the corners in search of shade. However, this was the only type of activity in the village. The brain-melting heat clearly did not help improve performance. On the Katsuma table there was an empty decanter with dried lemon peels, and the attendants themselves were lounging on chairs, listlessly fanning themselves with the lists of visitors. The unheard of happened. Shirani Genma released his beloved Senbon from his mouth. It was heating up too quickly in the sun. Itachi, passing through the gate, mechanically waved his hand to the guards on duty. They fluttered, making it clear that they had seen, but would write it down later. The Uchiha himself had a dry throat and double vision, but he stubbornly, albeit slowly, walked home. My hand ached, touched by an enemy kunai on a mission, and the smell of blood heated in the sun burned my nose. And in my head there are fragmentary plans for how to get into my own room and not get noticed by Shursui and Ototo. The story with the uncle quickly became the property of his family. Itachi even ran away on the first escort mission he came across, just so as not to see two wide, malicious smiles, similar to each other. Salty, burning sweat flowed down his forehead, and his shirt under his vest was thoroughly soaked with sweat and blood. I was thirsty. Itachi had already imagined this transparent jug, fogged from the coolness, with 2 slices of lemon inside. And it's still a long way from home, uncle, someone sang loudly in my ear. Itachi jerked, and then saw the round face of that girl from the academy. She looked amazingly fresh. In a light sundress, with the same braid, she held fruit ice in her hand and handed him the second portion. I want to thank you again for your help and apologize, Datebeo. She smiled. Itachi grabbed onto a piece of slightly melted ice with pleasure, feeling the coolness flowing down his throat with a groan of pleasure. He destroyed the sweetness in 2 minutes without even noticing. The girl silently handed him the second one. The guy nodded gratefully. Were you waiting for me? The voice turned out hoarse, almost broken. He had to pronounce too many seals. No. The woman walking next to me shrugged. I saw you in this state, uncle, and decided to help. Because a shinobi must help others, Datebeo. I'm not an uncle, Itachi muttered. Really, auntie? The girl widened her eyes in amazement. The only things that gave her away were the sparkles of laughter in her eyes and her trembling lips. It's all because of you, the guy announced, sighing heavily and wiping sweat from his forehead. I can't even go to my room without being called uncle, he complained. The girl giggled, and the Uchiha realized that there would be no sympathy here. At what point the strong waste of chakra and loss of blood had their effect, Itachi did not catch. My vision darkened, and at the edge of my consciousness a ringing, frightened voice was heard. The Uchiha woke up late in the evening, if not at night. There was silence and blessed coolness in the room where he lay. A light breeze rushed in through the open window, to which the exhausted shinobi gladly offered his burning face. He was clearly not in the hospital. It's two, homie. Pots with plants on the windowsill, an old rug, almost worn out in places, on the floor. Clothes of bright colors peeked out from behind the slightly open, scratched closet door, and a climbing plant stretched along the wall from the closet itself. The apartment was old, but lived in and so cozy. From behind the wall, probably from the kitchen, came the dissatisfied grumbling and clinking of dishes. Itachi involuntarily smiled, recognizing the accent of his familiar stranger. So, when he lost consciousness, she dragged him to her home. And she professionally bandaged the wounds, the shinobi noted, looking at the bandage on his hand, from which the smell of healing and disinfecting ointment lingered. Meow! A nasty voice broke the silence. With a jerk, the guy turned to the intruder, clutching a kunai in his hand. The yellow, impudent eyes of the headache of every Konoha genin for the past 5 years looked at him. Tora, the cat of a noble lady. With the tenacity of a doomed animal, the animal ran away from its owner over and over again. And time after time, squads of young shinobi returned him to the steel arms of a woman. Itachi only once had the opportunity to participate in the hunt for Toru. The cat showed skills worthy of a Jonin-level ninja. And the bloodthirstiness of Nuke-Nin. Slowly, followed by the cat's gaze, Itachi removed the kunai. He often comes here. A girl appeared in the room with a small table in her hands. She placed it on the guy's lap. Don't worry. You don't often have guests, Itachi noted. The girl sitting in the chair became sad, her shoulders sagged. Tora immediately came over and lounged on her lap, allowing her to stroke him. And at the same time he gave the patient a disapproving look. Itachi choked on a piece of bread. Of course, he knew that this creature was smart, but why so? You are my first guest. The girl raised her face, smiled sunnily and added with a vindictive note. Uncle! The Uchiha jumped up, but decided to remain silent. The broth with some herbs and spices turned out to be very tasty, and there was also a very delicate pie waiting for him. It was not enough for him to be kicked out. Why didn't you call the doctors for help? Or didn't she take her to the hospital? He asked. Because they wouldn't treat you. His savior shrugged. In the depths of his eyes, even despite the dim light of the lamp, Itachi saw childish sadness. Why wouldn't they? Because I brought you. They never helped me. Resentment now appeared in the voice. They say I'm a demon and I have to handle it myself. Lady Fumiko used to be there, she always treated me secretly from the others. But last spring she died of pneumonia. She was already 85. Itachi was amazed at the pain in his voice, in his broken figure. And the warmth with which she remembered the old woman. But I won't leave it like that. The girl suddenly boiled. She jumped up, clenching her fists. I will become the main ironing and will help everyone who comes to me. That's it, Datebao. Why then not the Hokage right away? Itachi snorted mockingly, almost licking the plate. Even my mother couldn't make such a delicious dish. I used to want to become one so that they would recognize me. The girl smiled slyly. Her face began to resemble the muzzle of a cunning fox. But one day I saw how many pieces of paper he had on his desk. He doesn't leave his office for days on end. I can't do this, Datebao. I want to go on missions, I want to become a strong shinobi to protect my friends. And treat them like Grandma Fu. She became more and more incensed. The cheeks were flushed, the eyes sparkled. Good goal. Itachi nodded approvingly. Your friends are probably happy about such enthusiasm. The girl went dark again, and the guy earned another reproachful look from Tora. I don't know, she answered as indifferently as possible. I have no friends. There used to be Grandma Fu and Grandpa Ka, now only Grandpa remains. So you must protect and treat your grandfather, Itachi suggested judiciously, making himself more comfortable on the pillows. After a hearty dinner and medicine, my eyes were drooping and I didn't want to go anywhere. He yawned heartbreakingly. I'm sure you'll succeed. Do you really think so? She all lit up. Itachi shook his head in amazement. Her mood was as changeable as the wind over the sea. Thank you, uncle. I will definitely become the chief medical officer, Datebao. You will see. Did you cook the food and bandage me yourself? The guy asked, already half asleep. It was important for him to know. Yes. A whisper on the verge of audibility, thin hands carefully pulling the blanket over him. Grandma Fu taught me everything. Sleep, uncle, you need to rest. I'm not an uncle. Did he say it out loud or did he dream it? Tora was purring loudly somewhere above his ear. In the morning, when he woke up, the girl was no longer in the apartment. She probably ran away to the academy. Itachi made the bed and briefly thought about how to thank the stranger who had never introduced herself to him. She will be offended by the money, obviously she tried from the bottom of her heart. But weapons, as far as he remembered, they were not issued at the academy, but he needed to train with something. And it doesn't look like the girl is capable of buying herself a decent weapon. She has food supplies of ramen and milk for all occasions. Yesterday she clearly spent money on him. Itachi silently removed a dozen kunai from the poison and left them on her desk along with the sealing scroll. Like gratitude. Uncle Kagami, I'm here. Are you home? Itachi took off his shoes and walked inside. His mother asked him to pick up some scrolls from Shirsui's father, and at the same time give him some homemade sweets. He looked into the first room he came across. Eyebrows shot up. Uncle? His personal punishment was sitting at a low table and doing calligraphy. His fingers were smeared with ink, and there were even a couple of stains on his cheeks. Sheets with neatly written hieroglyphs covered the carpet all around the table. We started seeing each other often, Itachi stated. What are you doing here? I'm studying. What about you, Datebao? And he brought me a gift. Kagami Uchiha, silently approaching from behind, chuckled. Naruto, you need to warm up. Do the cannon in your backyard. Yes, Grandpa Ka. The girl nodded, bowed briefly, and ran away. Grandfather Ka? Uncle? The older relative retorted sarcastically, causing Itachi to blush a little. Let's go see her training. They walked onto a small veranda, where there was already a tea set. Itachi unpacked the sweets his mother had given him, and Kagami filled the cups. Together they began to watch how the girl deftly wielded a huge fan, directing air flows in different directions. What have you already found out about her? Asked the older Uchiha, taking a sip. Itachi squinted his eyes. Age had no effect on my uncle at all. The gaze remained piercing as before. It was as if he could see right through you even without the Sharingan. How did he guess? After that last meeting, Itachi could not get the girl out of his head. Against his will, his trained gaze searched the crowd for a familiar head of blonde hair, but caught only a flick of the tip of the braid. Itachi diligently hid his interest, finding out the truth little by little, bit by bit. Naruto Uzumaki. Whirlpool. She lived up to her name completely. Alive, mobile, bright, spontaneous. And just like the elements, it dragged on, inexorably, without the right to salvation. Jinchuriki Fox. Itachi carefully selected his words. At the academy, there are not enough stars from the sky. It cannot perform the simplest replacement, or an illusory clone. Teachers swear, lazy, impudent, arrogant, doesn't try, doesn't work. People hate her and fear her. It seems they even beat me. The fingers squeezed the cup harder. And what do you think? Why do you keep looking for information about her? Kagami did not take his eyes off his student. The fan whistled through the air, strong arms twisted and turned it. Itachi saw how his muscles tensed, how his skin glistened with sweat in the sun. She danced, stepped over the vortex flows, bending, passing them above her. I don't know, uncle. For some reason. I can't let her go. I don't know why yet. Uncle bowed his head, accepting the answer. The time will come and you will understand everything. The main thing is not to rush to draw final conclusions and make decisions. Kagami Uchiha sat with his back proudly straight, as if he were at a reception with the daimyo, and not at home. Black eyes tenaciously followed Naruto, every movement of the girl. Itachi was sure that the elder relative had not missed a single mistake in fulfilling the canon. You teach her, uncle. Why? For everyone, this girl is the weapon of the village, the Jinchuriki. But to me, she's the granddaughter of my best friend and teacher. It was the first time Itachi had seen the usually reserved, insightful, and always collected older relatives so dreamy. A slight smile appeared on his lips, and a veil of memories covered his eyes. He saw his distant past, relived it, looking at the little girl with a battle fan. This was the first serious mission of our genin team. We were entrusted with escorting a few ninjutsu master from the allied village of Whirlpool. It turned out to be a lively red-haired ulcer. He chuckled. In 2 weeks of travel, she managed to piss everyone off, including our mentor. She could set up a camp and seal a person in a scroll in a couple of seconds, but during attacks she preferred to climb a tree and scream from there. For some reason it seemed to me that she was having a lot of fun. Later, in Yuzushio, I accidentally found out that it was not us who were assigned to accompany the master, but she was asked to look after the genin on their first serious mission. Without us, she would have reached home in a couple of days. With her endurance and speed, and she climbed a tree so that the attackers would not see her. In the vicinity of the whirlpool, everyone knew her by sight. And they were afraid. So she didn't spoil our training. Kagami sighed happily and took a sip of tea. He spoke about the woman with trepidation, almost reverence. As a result, we all returned to Konoha together. He continued. She began to teach me the art of seals. Of course, I could not reach her level, but I learned something from her science. The man became gloomy for a moment, burying his gaze into the surface of the drink. What happened to her? She died during the assault on Yuzushio. The only thing she managed to do was send her daughter to Konoha. He was silent for a while, then shrugged his shoulders, as if shaking off a sticky net. He smiled again. She didn't like to be sad, she considered it a waste of time. Remember something only when it gives you pleasure. This was her philosophy. And Naruto is very similar to her, she even talks almost like her. One has only to imagine that her hair and eyes are red, and it's as if I see my dear teacher again. Therefore, I could not allow her granddaughter to be made into a blunt weapon, following only orders, tearing out her veins for the sake of a good word. Fumiko and I began to take care of her. Maybe not always, not all the time, but Naruto should have seen a kind attitude, understood that not all people are the same. Fumiko? Naruto talked about her. Itachi wrinkled his brow. Few people know, but Fumiko was my wife's cousin. She was the first to notice Naruto. And she brought her to me. That's how we met. I began to teach her the basics of Tai and Fuin, and Fumiko took up chakra control, medical techniques, and home economics. At the last word he giggled like a boy. Itachi's eyes widened, then he chuckled, remembering the rumors that circulated around the clan a couple of years ago. Everyone thought that you had decided to marry a second time. He smiled. Kagami laughed. Shinigami protect me from such a wife and child. He raised his hands as if giving up. Naruto could make an explosive out of any, even the simplest seal. And Fumiko was guiding him on the right path with a ladle. He winced, his hand jerked to the back of his head, and the Uchiha barely stopped her. Besides, as Fumiko herself said, I was too young for her. Itachi chuckled, stifling his laughter. Kagami shook his fist at him without malice. I'll set Shursui on, he threatened. I run fast and hide well, the clan genius retorted. Kagami looked at the girl again. When I started studying with her, I understood why the Uzumaki were nicknamed the Red Devils. And why were they not allowed out of Yuzushio until they reached adulthood? Naruto was too restless, energetic child. How much effort it took Fumiko and I so that she wouldn't fall asleep during meditation, so that she wouldn't tear the calligraphy sheets from stress. She could not sit in one place for a long time, she was always eager to go somewhere. Compared to her, even her mother Kushina seemed like a meek, calm girl. Kushina Uzumaki? That's what he was definitely surprised by. During all this time, he had never been able to find out the names of Naruto's parents. People just shook their heads and threw up their hands, not knowing what to say. The third decided to hide from everyone, including Naruto herself, who her parents were. That the fourth, her father sealed a demon inside her, in the hope that the next generation of children will treat her kindly. But Itachi raised an eyebrow. He studied too well the older relative who once taught him tactics and analysis. Kagami Uchiha was famous for his insight. I believe that in this way he paid off Danzo. It's a small price to pay for a Jinchuriki not to end up in the dungeons of the root. Itachi understood him. He himself chose to leave ANBU rather than stand in the way of the intrigues of those in power. It's better to be a simple jonin doing solo missions. Cowardly? Maybe. But he was tired of taking on too much, risking practically his soul, tearing it to pieces. The face is impassive, but Kagami managed to read everything in the eyes of his younger relative. I see that you are familiar with Danzo's methods. Just like my sure sway. Even too much. Itachi muttered and jumped up. Does Naruto know who her parents are? And about Kyuubi? Yes. After that, she began to study even harder and stopped shouting at every corner that she would become Hokage. Let the academy think that the girl is stupid. In fact, Naruto thinks a little differently, trusting his heart and intuition. Like her grandmother, she sees people and understands them, even if she is unfamiliar with them. That's why he wants to become a doctor, to be able to save without sacrificing anyone. Exactly. Of course, this is still a child's view of things, of their future profession. She will grow up and will still have to face death. Well, for now, that's enough. And I will make sure that she is prepared for any surprises. The man spoke seriously, as if he had promised someone. Probably to his old friend. For a moment, Itachi felt uncomfortable. As if he had spied something hidden, intimate. This look, burningly sad, understanding, serious. Kagami seemed to be trying to apologize to someone. Fan? He changed the subject. Why him? The elder Uchiha became calm again. She made the choice herself. She has the element of air, like her grandmother. And a little water, like mother's. It is easier to teach her how to handle water than air. There are practically no techniques for it. Today's shinobi only sharpen their weapons. The only one who really knew how to handle this element was Naruto's grandmother. What she did with her fan was amazing. Master of Tessenjutsu. And I was surprised when Naruto chose Tessen instead of a kunai. As she said, she feels like it's hers. And you made her a fan? Kagami looked at his interlocutor with a sly squint. Itachi became wary. Who said that this fan is mine? The man chuckled. He, along with notes on the school of Tessenjutsu, was sent to Konoha along with Kushina by the thunderstorm of the entire whirlpool. All I had to do was pick it up from the warehouse. And the Hokage and Danzo didn't object? Itachi didn't believe it. They know that we were friendly, so they thought that I just wanted to keep something as a keepsake. Fools! The Uchiha snorted contemptuously. No one created and sealed weapons better than Uzumaki. This fan is thousands of times superior in its parameters to those that are being made now. It is literally saturated with chakra and stitched with threads of seals. With it, she can do much more than just create a vortex. After all, a real Fuin master worked on it. She has a reserve of Uzumaki chakra. Plus, she's also a Jinchuriki. Itachi thought slowly, comparing the facts. That could explain why she can't get the Academy's techniques. But you said that she has chakra control. And not bad. The Uchiha nodded, encouraging her to draw further conclusions. Does she already know how to use medical techniques? Not all. But in a couple of months I will be buying fish. A huge supply of chakra and excellent control, enough to become a medic. So why can't she perform a replacement or clone? She has no genjutsu abilities. I was thinking about asking Shursui to train her, but then a great option appeared. The man looked slyly at his relative. Yes, and it will be useful for you yourself. You will learn a lot of new things. If you agree, of course. Itachi looked at the training girl, at the man glowing with joy. Perhaps this will be the most important choice of his entire life. He couldn't get rid of thoughts about this girl, he wanted to unravel her secret. So why should he refuse the opportunity to get to know her better more? If she turns out to be stupid, like many of the kunoichi he knows, it will be nice, he can forget about her. In another case, his Ototo may have an excellent sparring partner, hardy, stubborn. Capable. I agree. Itachi nodded. Great! Unless Kagami jumped. Naruto, come here! The girl folded her fan with a click, threw it behind her as usual, securing it, and ran up to the veranda. Did something happen, Grandpa Ka? Let me introduce you to your genjutsu teacher. My relative Itachi. He will teach you how to cope with illusions. Is it true? Hello, Datebeo. The girl shouted. Thank you, uncle. I'm not an uncle. Itachi almost hissed. Just call me by name. And would you like to introduce yourself back to me? What for? She shrugged. You already know my name. Tuchi-san told me how you asked about me. Itachi looked at the man in shock. He was glowing with pleasure. Do you really think she just calls me Grandpa Ka? We have decided to temporarily hide the true level of Naruto's capabilities. At least until she can stand up for herself. And my network of agents tells about everyone who asks about me or my teachers. The girl proudly explained, blowing stray strands from her forehead. Agent network? Itachi repeated. I told you, it will be useful for you. The man shrugged. Even the best shinobi become too relaxed when they underestimate their opponent. And you were no exception. It's a shame. He shook his head tragically. Don't worry, Grandpa is joking. Naruto hastened to encourage him. Yes, but I still want to warn you. From most of the pranks in Konoha, the tip of a light braid sticks out. Kagami pulled the said tip. Grandfather. The girl was indignant. It is not true. And let your teacher decide that. He sternly shook his finger at her. What don't I know yet? The Uchiha inquired cautiously. Naruto and the teacher looked at each other and shrugged. Depends on what you already know, Kagami replied. But I'm ready to pay a certain price. After each training session, I will answer one question that interests you. Naruto picked up. He remembered the glory of Kagami Uchiha, who was said to be able to sell sand to Suna on his own terms. He never missed a benefit for the clan or the village. They said he could see secret desires in the souls of his opponents and allies and put pressure on them. The contracts he wrote were still set as an example for all students, because at each point a double, or even a triple bottom, emerged. Apparently, Naruto benefited from his training. Itachi had a hard time resisting the urge to slap himself on the forehead. Because it looks like the teacher and students squinted painfully. Chapter 2 Small Fan. At their first training session, Kagami joined them. He probably wanted to know how the relative and the student would work together. Itachi was known to be able to cast illusions with just one finger. Naruto, it's Naruto. She didn't look him in the eyes, she just waved her fan. The guy barely managed to escape from the spirally twisted thin streams of air. This is your first mistake. Kagami, sitting nearby, said contentedly. For many shinobi, it is not at all necessary to scream the name of their techniques and seals at the top of their lungs, especially since this can give the enemy a chance to prepare. At least morally. He chuckled when he saw how Naruto knocked down the shuriken aimed at her with a whirlwind. Datebeo, grandfather. Don't tell him all my secrets. Naruto screamed defendedly, dodging a kunai strike. Flexible, nimble, fast. Not fast enough yet. Itachi assessed her every move. I saw how Naruto was eager to fight, trying to strike directly, but stopping herself every time. The Uchiha training was taking its toll. She thought through it, analyzed the situation, and acted in her own way, bypassing logic in roundabout ways. And now she folded the fan, turned it, forcibly pulling the weapon out of Itachi's fingers. And then she fell, rode between his legs and hit him in the back with a blast of air. Itachi jumped, turned over and fired a dozen kunai at the girl. She crouched down and covered herself with her fan, like a shield. The weapon flew to the ground with a metallic clang. Quick waves of wind extinguished the fireball created by Itachi while still in flight. A fan is a cumbersome weapon. It gives many advantages in battle, but it also has no less disadvantages. It cannot be removed completely, it can only be folded. Sealing will take time, which sometimes does not happen. Plus, most fans, especially ones like Naruto's, are very heavy. Itachi thought so. He was guided by his battles with other Tessen carriers. Once again, he underestimated the Uzumaki's weapon. Kagami said correctly, the master created him. In one short moment, the fan folded up, became a small, almost feminine decoration, and Naruto flew at the enemy with a kunai clutched in her palm. The corners of the guy's lips twitched. He recognized the weapon he had given him. Tai's moves were good, still too slow, but she still managed to block several of his attacks aimed at the head and legs. She herself tried to inflict a wound with a kunai, which Itachi dodged with the agility of a snake. He wasn't trying to win, he needed to know her capabilities, what she had already learned, what she still needed to work on. Now he understood his uncle's reasons for making him the coach. The restless Uzumaki needed a young teacher who could keep up with all her actions, and at the same time calm enough to cool a hot head. Naruto was unable to dodge the blow to her stomach. She flew back to the tree and, with a strangled sigh, slid down it to the ground. And then she looked up, to find herself in the red and black world of Tsukiyomi. But even here Naruto behaved differently from everyone else. Having come to her senses, the girl began to look around with interest, looked at her hands, and brought the tip of her braid to her eyes. She even sniffed it and licked it. Cool, Datebeo. She raised her admiring eyes. How can this technique be used? She asked the red-black Itachi. Tsukiyomi is used mainly for interrogations, Uchiha explained. This space is completely under my control. And I control who gets here. I can hurt them so much that they themselves will tell me the truth. It is impossible to lie here, there is no way out. 3 days here are equal to 3 seconds there. Are you going to teach me this? No, this technique is a property of the Sharingan, the improved genome of my clan. I will teach you to overcome illusions and get out of them with minimal losses. This is exactly what Uncle Kagami asked me to do. Is he really your uncle? All Uchiha are related to each other. To one degree or another. Itachi shrugged. And completed the technique. Naruto sat under a tree and shook her head as if stunned. It was as if she was trying to shake water out of her ears. That's enough for the first time. Kagami stood up. About the next training, Naruto, agree with your teacher. Naruto bowed lightly before the man disappeared into the shunshin. The girl turned to the guy. Shall we have a snack? Because I'm hungry. She smiled. From the seal she took out a package of rice with egg and dango. Do you know how to make food scrolls? Itachi was amazed. After the death of the whirlpool, much of their knowledge was lost. It was not for nothing that Uzumaki were considered masters of their craft. It was said that they could even seal a person and then return him safe and sound. As Kagami explained with a laugh, sealing weapons with red demons was considered an easy task, training for a child. Therefore, they easily gave this knowledge to Konoha, and even then not to all shinobi. But when creating a food seal or a human seal, it was necessary to take into account the nature of the chakra, time and space, regulate them, and somehow correlate them. Perhaps only the seal master could explain, but there are very few of them left. Even fewer are those who could even try to repeat the work of Uzumaki. Therefore, work with the Maelstrom Mon was worth its weight in gold. Not yet, my grandmother gave this ka to my grandfather along with the fan. Naruto resembled a golden hamster with its cheeks stuffed with grains. And the stripes looked like antennae. Itachi found himself stretching his mouth into a smile. And there was also a notebook with notes, and her notes. For example, she described the properties of her weapon. She nodded at the Tessen, which had become large again. How did you reduce it? Is this a question of payment? Uzumaki immediately caught herself, coughing. Itachi patted her on the back. Yes, nothing, he will have time to find out the rest gradually. He has enough time. There is a certain seal on the fan. You feed chakra into it, and it shrinks. This allows you to sneak up on your opponent and strike. Even the sensors won't feel it. Are there any disadvantages? Yes. Naruto held out a stick of dango. A lot of energy is wasted. Grandmother wrote that only Uzumaki could afford most of the seals. Blood, inclinations, reserve size, and the like. By the way, when is the next training? After 2 days. You need to rest. But I'm not tired. I still have a lot to show, Datebeo. Naruto, Itachi said with emphasis. The girl wilted. Got it, teacher. Itachi, the guy corrected her and pulled her braid. I also need rest. I am not made of iron, but you drove me. Naruto narrowed her eyes in disbelief, but then nodded. As if she realized that the teacher would not get away from her. Then I'll go. Thanks for the training, Itachi. See you in 2 days. She quickly disappeared behind the trees, and Itachi fell onto the grass, raising his eyes to the clouds. Changeable like a hurricane. And just as stubborn. Naruto Uzumaki did not know how to give up. When something didn't work out, she gritted her teeth and went straight towards her goal. Not paying attention to abrasions and wounds, without screams and moans, she achieved her goal. She fell and rose again and again. I practiced the techniques until I collapsed from fatigue. And Itachi condoned her in this. He wanted to see how exactly this girl would become a strong kunoichi, how she would use the techniques he taught her. He also appreciated the rare moments of candor at the end of each training session. When she and Naruto sat on the platform under a tree, they ate a delicious treat prepared by the girl and talked. Payment by question and answer was forgotten and turned into a funny joke that only the two of them understood. He learned about Naruto's spy network. Her spies turned out to be ordinary boys and girls running around the streets of Konoha all day long. As an older friend, she darned and sewed up their torn clothes, for which their mothers would certainly scold them, and treated abrasions and bruises. I climbed through the gardens with them, climbed into the catacombs, explored every corner. A gang of children led by Uzumaki turned into a formidable intelligence force that knew everything about everyone. After all, no one pays attention to the children playing nearby, while they listen and remember. Itachi remembered how Naruto laughed, holding his sides, seeing his surprised face. Well, he didn't expect this from her, he didn't expect it. And she laughed and infected the Uchiha with her laughter. Soon the girl began to study the technique of the mystical hand, and she was constantly accompanied by the smell of water and fresh fish. The vengeful Uzumaki prepared sushi from unsuccessful attempts, and treated Itachi to it. The guy himself didn't notice how he began to enjoy each of their rare meetings, anticipated it, and then began to look forward to it. Naruto charged those around her with positivity, generously sharing her joy and smile. They now have a personal game, only for two. Previously, Itachi had not been interested in the social life of Konoha, but now he began to collect news and gossip, trying to guess what mischief Naruto had a hand in. She blinked her eyes and spread her arms, making a blank face. And for every event she had an alibi or justification. With her, regular training ceased to be a drab routine. Naruto tried to come up with something new to get out of the most complex illusions. She filled me with cheerfulness and optimism. Despite the pain in his eyes after using the Sharingan, the fatigue reigning in his body became pleasant. Itachi felt renewed, more energetic than ever. And at night I could not fall asleep for a long time, replaying every word, every gesture of the student over and over again in my head. For himself, the guy decided to follow Kagami's advice and not rush to conclusions. Let everything take its course. If Naruto occupied any place in his thoughts, then so be it. He needs to know the weaknesses and strengths of his future Ototo ally. Achi! Itachi! Sasuke waved his hands in front of his frozen brother's face. Are you okay? Yes, I was just thinking. What did you want, Ototo? Train me, brother. Please! Sasuke made the most touching face in his arsenal. If his classmates had seen him, they would have torn him for souvenirs. Itachi just grinned and flicked his forehead. Let's do it next time. I have important things to do today. He stood up and put the book aside. I have to go. See you? See you later, brother, Sasuke said, upset. Itachi Shunshin moved to a familiar clearing, where Naruto was supposed to arrive soon. She wasn't there. Neither 20 minutes nor an hour later, the girl whom Kagami personally taught to be punctual did not show up for training. Knowing Naruto's character and her passion for techniques and activities, Itachi became worried. What if something happened to her? It was no secret to him how the residents of the village treated the Jinchuriki. Naruto couldn't answer them in any way. She didn't want to harm them and thereby confirm the rumors. Several times Itachi even offered to walk her home, but the girl proudly refused, wrinkling her nose. I have to handle it myself, Itachi. Otherwise, what kind of ninja am I, Date Bayo? And now she is missing. Itachi jumped up and started running towards the academy. Today they were supposed to have short classes, practical preparation for exams. As graduation approached, teachers began to demand more from their students and ask more questions. Naruto could very well sit in the library, forgetting about time. It was hard to console myself. As he expected, there was no one at the academy anymore. Naruto's teacher, Yumino Irika, looked in surprise at the stony face of the Uchiha, interested in the demon, and said that lessons ended 2 hours ago. And his entire class fled home. The guy went out into the yard and froze. Where could Naruto be? Maybe she's busy? But then she would have sent someone from her gang with a message. Did something really happen to her? After all, despite all her talents, she is still a child. He can't even walk on walls yet. For the first time, Itachi regretted that he had not paid attention to the girl's basic training, believing that she would be taught everything on the team. Her favorite swing was empty. The guy ran his hand along the rope. How many times had he seen a sad pug framed by golden hair when he came for Otuto? Why then wasn't he interested in her? Maybe because it didn't glow. A muffled sob caught his attention. Holding his hand to his pouch, Itachi silently walked deeper into the grove. Naruto sat under a tree, wiping away small angry tears. His broken knuckles bled, as did the abrasions on his knees. She bit her lip, grimaced, trying not to make a sound. Seeing the guy, she quickly wiped her cheeks and raised her face. Itachi? Sorry, I was lost in thought. The Uchiha sat down next to her. What happened, Naruto? The girl is not one of those who will shed tears in vain. I don't understand, Uzumaki said angrily, even furiously, squeezing the grass in her fists. Well, I can't make these stupid illusory clones. Well, I can't get a replacement. But I can still do so much, Date Bayo. So why aren't they interested in this at all? She said quietly, hiding her face behind her bangs. Itachi didn't need to explain who wasn't interested. He knew how Jinchuriki were treated at school. Naruto knew that this would happen, she knew from childhood. Kagami told her, Fumiko hinted at something like that. But I still hoped. And lately it has become especially difficult. Fumiko died, Kagami pulled away, throwing her at Itachi, who did not want to close the distance between them. Naruto. He carefully stroked his fluffy, soft hair. You shouldn't hide your feelings from your friends. The girl raised her head and looked at him with disbelieving eyes. And you, are you my friend? She inquired cautiously. Itachi almost laughed at his own stupidity. All his life he had been searching for a man like Shursui. Who would not see him as the heir of a great clan, for whom influence, money or technology would not matter. And when I found it, I almost missed it. Naruto never mentioned his last name, was not interested in it when she dragged the unfamiliar shinobi to her home. Instead, she trained with him, treated him to ice cream, cooked for him. Together they read books on ninja art and got out of illusions. She could have pulled the tip of his tail and nothing would have happened to her. Grandpa Ka? Uncle. Without thinking about his status, she gave him hers. She recognized him as her own. Yes, I'm your friend, Naruto, he said with pleasure. Thank you. She shone again like the sun. She hugged him and pressed him. Like any abandoned child, she really wanted simple human warmth. Itachi felt this same warmth spreading throughout his body from his belt, where thin but strong arms clasped him. He didn't know how to console. The Uchiha were not taught this. Emotions are weakness, so they believed in the clan. But he remembered what his mother did when he was in pain or hard. The guy put his head on the top of his head, stroked his fluffy hair, and blew lightly into his face, making him wrinkle his nose. Don't worry. Everything will be alright. You will see. Naruto just nodded happily. For the first time, Naruto was completely and unconditionally happy. Before this, she had no idea how strained her teacher-student relationship with Itachi was. She wanted to make friends with him, to take off this stupid mask of pride and arrogance that he put on. The indifferent face and empty eyes frightened her, making her remember the ghost that the girl was scared to death. And also, under the gaze she was nervous and didn't know what to say. I was always afraid of making a mistake. She felt like she was freezing. It was as if frost was slowly covering itself next to him, starting from the tips of his occasionally touching fingers. She was scared, cold, lonely. Even with him, she remained alone. Grandfather Ka advised to wait until Itachi thaws out. All Uchiha have difficulties with trust and take time to get used to. It is only in battle that they think quickly. In everyday life they think slowly but thoroughly. Naruto honestly tried to follow the advice and wait, but she couldn't. Every now and then she wanted to grab the teacher by the shoulders and shake him thoroughly in order to achieve at least some feelings. She bothered him, told him funny stories, and with him she laughed more than she had all day. She spent her nights at the stove, cooking, to be sure to please. After all, Fumiko said so, and she could not be wrong. Grandmother believed that a girl must know how to cook. Because the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And Naruto really wanted to get into Itachi's heart and become his friend. She considered that day near the academy disgusting. She couldn't even find the strength to go to training. She didn't want Itachi to see her with teary eyes. Weak, defenseless. Clueless, as Irika-sensei called her. And it turned out that this day became the best. Itachi called himself her friend. And after that I started completely new training. He taught her to walk on vertical surfaces, trees and water. He taught him to throw shuriken, although Naruto wasn't very good at it. He also showed her the shadow cloning technique, which the girl got right the second time. She was able to create 100 clones. Then Itachi was pleased. Over the months of knowing each other, Naruto has already learned to understand him by one movement of his eyebrows, to solve all his mysterious hms. Grandma Fumiko was right, Uchihas are so funny. Naruto hummed a song to herself. Collecting herbs always calmed me down and allowed me to tune into a positive mood. First of all, her grandmother taught her to recognize medicinal and poisonous herbs, dry them correctly, make potions and ointments, stimulants and sedatives. And much, much more. Grandmother was in a hurry to convey all her experience. Naruto knew about poisons and antidotes, and was able to identify some of them. She could prepare the antiseptic herself or make the squeezes. But Fumiko's grandmother told her to remember one thing for sure: you need to collect herbs with bright thoughts. Otherwise, they will not bring any benefit, only harm. Naruto always tried to follow this rule strictly. Her road went through an old, abandoned landfill. It was not used because too many blast seals were planted there and were not found. The Hokage and the Hyuga clan simply did not have enough time. So only the most risky, experienced, or Naruto, came here. Therefore, Naruto was surprised to find Sasuke Uchiha on the site, frantically kicking a tree. His knuckles were bloody, and he went on, muttering furiously to himself. It wasn't that Naruto didn't like her classmate. Itachi's younger brother simply cannot be a bad person. He probably also wears a mask. But for some reason I wanted to get around him, to show myself better, cooler. Date Bayo. The girl grinned when she caught her favorite word in her thoughts. It always burst out from her in moments of excitement. Throwing her braid over her shoulder, she hung the basket of herbs on her arm and headed towards her friend. Sasuke? He jumped up and turned around. What's happened? Nothing, Dobe. He snapped sharply and blushed because he was taken by surprise. Team. Naruto flushed, but pulled herself together. So, what's wrong with you? Sasuke sighed, his shoulders slumping. You won't fall behind, will you? Nope. My brother. Previously, he kept saying. Not now, Ototo, a little later, Ototo. Shirsui's brother explained that he was worried about me because he worked in ANBU, knew a lot of unnecessary things and tried to protect me. But now it's essentially doing the same thing, and I can't find any reason for it. He constantly runs away, saying that he has something to do, that he is busy. Sasuke almost shouted, clenching his fists. So your brother worked for ANBU. Naruto singled out the most important thing, thoughtfully stroking her lower lip. Don't know. Is that all you understand, Dobe? Sasuke soared. No, that's all I'm interested in, the topic. Naruto waved it off. Your problems are not worth a damn. Let's go. She tenaciously grabbed his wrist and dragged him along. Wait, what are you doing? Sasuke blushed and looked around. He twitched, trying to free the limb, but the girl only tightened her grip. And where does such strength come from in a skinny little body? What will they think of us? They'll think that I'm dragging you home to cut you up and eat you. Naruto snorted mockingly, rolling her eyes. I'm a demon, remember? Sasuke turned gloomy, blushed and muttered something. Naruto understood him. He had seen his classmate bullied more than once. And I probably heard from my parents how bad she is and that you can't be friends with her. Dobe, you're going to tear my hand off. She didn't notice how she squeezed her hand harder. Sorry. She loosened her grip a little. It's okay, you'll have to endure it for a good cause. She giggled. Where are we going? Can you answer or not? Sasuke couldn't resist. To the Uchiha training ground, owned by the house of Kagami Uchiha. What are we going to do there? To get answers to your questions. Naruto drawled mysteriously, anticipating the kind of face Itachi would have when he saw who she had brought with her. Her expectations were met. Itachi's eyes, sitting in their usual place under the tree, widened amusingly, even his mouth opened slightly. It's a shame that he quickly pulled himself together. Ototo? He raised his eyebrows in surprise. What are you doing here? Naruto? He turned to the student. Maybe you can explain what's going on here. And why did you bring Sasuke here? Itachi, can he train with us? Naruto asked point blank. Sometimes it's better to stun, as grandfather said, and then finish off. I knew it, thank you. She was delighted, not allowing a word to be inserted. The main thing is to take advantage of the general surprise, and then they will not be able to do anything. Itachi is training me at the request of Kagami Uchiha. She turned to Sasuke. Teaches you how to discard illusions, walk on trees, and the like. Do you want to join us? Sasuke nodded slowly, buried under a heap of quickly dumped information. Well, that's nice. Naruto beamed. We will have more fun together, date Bayo. Naruto! Itachi had already come to his senses and now towered over the girl. Uzumaki shrank. If she were a kitten, you could see how her ears drooped, pressing against her head. She clutched her basket. I wanted the best. She mumbled quietly. Itachi opened his mouth, and then closed it. He clearly didn't know whether to be angry with the girl or not. On the one hand, she revealed her secret to a stranger. On the other hand, she helped correct the situation with Sasuke, before whom the Uchiha felt guilty. He looked helplessly at his younger brother. Leave her alone, Anai-san. Sasuke grinned. She really wanted the best. And do you know what I regret? He narrowed his eyes. About what? Itachi asked carefully. Naruto still didn't dare straighten up and let go of the basket from her hands. But she was already looking at the brothers with interest. Sasuke really turned out to be a good person, as she had felt before. About the fact that I didn't come to the training ground from which she dragged me away much earlier. Sasuke smiled broadly, not at all in the Uchiha way. Naruto stood up proudly and beamed, pleased with the disguised praise. Itachi walked slowly out of the store, clutching a bag of groceries to his chest. Sasuke was skipping next to him, simultaneously telling him what he would like to achieve in training. Itachi listened to his brother with a smile. Naruto's escapade bore more fruit than they could have hoped for. Sasuke began to attend classes constantly. As Itachi had previously wanted, he and Naruto became excellent sparring partners. Both were persistent and resilient in achieving their goals, both did not give up until the last. Unspoken competition, without a drop of anger. They could hit each other, throw kunai, and then sit happily and eat ramen at Ichiraku. At first I wanted to make up for lost time with my brother, to improve relations that were almost ruined again. To make amends for the guilt I felt. It was as if Naruto had read his thoughts, because she flatly refused to study without Sasuke. She said that she would wait until he caught up with the program. Once again Itachi marveled at Uzumaki's ability to read his desires from the slightest movement, just a flutter of his eyelashes. Despite her impulsiveness, Naruto was a kind, sympathetic and very perceptive girl. Sometimes even too much. And at the same time, she never used the observations obtained to harm a person. So while Itachi was working on his little brother with complete dedication, Naruto was selflessly treating the fish in the shade. And on the day when Sasuke first ran up and down the tree, the patient came to life. True, then I went for sushi anyway. Brother, are you thinking again? Sasuke waved his hand in front of his face. Do you remember what day it is today? The 10th of October. The elder answered incomprehensibly. Day of remembrance of those killed during the attack of the fox and Naruto's birthday. He picked up his brother's words. Naruto never talked about her birthday, she just mentioned one day that she didn't celebrate it. I think we should visit her, Sasuke suggested, pretending to be independent. We'll have to warn our parents. After the fateful night, my father tried to spend all his free time with his family. And now he and his mother were sitting in a large room. The head of the clan was looking through documents, and his wife was sewing up Sasuke's shirt. Welcome back. Mikoto greeted them. Have you bought everything? Yes, Mom. Itachi responded while Sasuke was unloading bags in the kitchen. Something happened? The woman asked worriedly, seeing the shadows of excitement on the face of her eldest son. The father, hearing her words, put down the papers and looked closely at his firstborn. Itachi wanted to shiver under this gaze, but he restrained himself. You need to save face in any situation. Nothing special. I wanted to ask that Sasuke and I'd be allowed to spend the night at a friend's house. I know him? Asked Fugaku. We studied together. Sasuke came from the kitchen and sat down next to his brother. Today is a difficult day for him. I understand. The man nodded. May I know his name? The brothers looked at each other. They didn't want to reveal Naruto's secret yet, but the support of the clan would not be superfluous. No need, dear. Mikoto intervened, gently taking her husband's hand. When our sons want, they will tell everything themselves. Don't put pressure on them. As always, when looking at his wife, Fugaku softened. Sometimes Itachi felt like he was ready to rip the moon out of the sky for the sake of their mother. Okay. He nodded. I allow you. Mikoto, meanwhile, ran to the kitchen and returned after a while with a basket in her hands. Take it, there's some food for lunch and a pie. Just baked it today. It's not all your friend has to feed you. Itachi looked at his mother in shock. She smiled slyly, her eyes sparkling with laughter. Mom, Sasuke said in shock. Are you the only ones allowed to have secrets? She smiled. Don't forget, your mother used to wear a gown and vest not for her beautiful eyes. Although the eyes are beautiful. Fugaku said dreamily and kissed his wife's hand. She blushed and giggled embarrassedly, like a girl. Otuto, it seems like we're superfluous here. Itachi whispered. Sasuke nodded. I agree, Anai-san. They quickly retreated from the room, although it is unlikely that their parents noticed their maneuver. Already on the street, Sasuke shook his head. Our parents, they are people too, Ototo. How do you think you were born? Itachi chuckled. Brother! The boy's ears flared indignantly. The elder flicked him on the forehead with a familiar gesture. Let's go, we have to go. Sasuke ran after him. Naruto lived on the outskirts of Konoha, in an old shinobi dormitory. After the war, those who lost their own housing were temporarily assigned there. Dilapidated walls, creaky steps and railings threatening to collapse. Narrow aisles with tin cans for cigarette butts. The apartments are small, but it's good to have a separate bathroom in each. How do we determine where she lives? Asked Sasuke. Itachi silently extended his hand and poked at one of the doors. He was afraid that his voice would fail him. The scratched old door with the whirlpool sign was covered in dirt and toilet paper. On the area around her there were cans and broken bottles. Someone even wrote large expletives over the peeling paint. Suddenly he imagined a little fair-haired girl, huddled in a ball in an apartment, behind whose walls people were worried. They shout, curse, threaten her, even want to kill her. How they knock and break in on her, and the only barrier is a thin, flimsy door. Is this really what the fourth wanted for his daughter? Brother, this is the first time I want to kill someone, Sasuke said gloomily, and Itachi caught the echo of his own feelings in the Ototo's eyes. Oddly enough, this is what calmed him down. I don't think Naruto would want that. Let's go before the pie gets cold. They jumped over the railing and knocked on the door carefully, trying not to get into the egg yolks and lumps of dirt. Pigs! Sasuke hissed. No one responded in the apartment, no lights were on. It was as if no one was home. For a moment, Itachi thought that Uncle Kagami had taken Naruto in, but he immediately dismissed the thought. It is unlikely that he would risk attracting the attention of Danzo and his route to the Jinchuriki and himself. Naruto, it's us, he said quietly, coming almost close. There was a rustling sound behind the door, like a small mouse scurrying around. The next moment, two thin hands dragged the guys inside. Naruto immediately slammed the door, locked it and checked the lock several times. You shouldn't have come. She shook her head. You shouldn't be seen in my company, not today, but it's your birthday, Naruto. Sasuke was indignant. Ototo is right. Itachi intervened. Sorry, we didn't prepare any gifts, but we brought a delicious pie with us. Mom asked me to tell you. Naruto blushed and bit her lip. Thank you? She swallowed and cleared her throat. Thank you, Datebayo. Come in. She waved her hand towards the only room. The Uchihas froze on the threshold. Naruto prepared thoroughly for her birthday. All the furniture was moved away from the window, the carpet was removed, the curtains were drawn, making it a pleasant twilight. And the window itself was covered with a board. I'll cook something to eat now. The hostess looked out from the kitchen. Why don't you come through? Something happened? She looked over their shoulder. Oh, that's why you're standing here. One year my window was broken, so I was tired of scrubbing the floors afterwards. It's easier to move furniture into place than to pick glass out of it all day. She shrugged. We have food with us. Itachi held out the basket. Do you mind if we sit in the kitchen? No, of course not, Datebayo. In the kitchen, Naruto, with her usual movement, threw her braid behind her back and tied the scarf. A dark green apron lay over a light blue knee-length dress. The girl lit the fire again, put a large saucepan on it, and began stirring it with a large wooden spoon. The stupefying smells of basil and hot pepper, hot spices mixed with juicy meat and fresh vegetables floated throughout the room. Itachi swallowed, remembering that he had missed lunch today. Before your arrival, I started cooking curry. So let's give them lunch. Any objections? She threatened them with a spoon. The Uchihas shook their heads briskly. Naruto grinned. Fine. Itachi liked the Uzumaki's tiny, cozy kitchen. I liked touching my brother's knees. I liked that a light breeze washed over him when Naruto passed by for spices. I liked feeling the smell of home-cooked food and the warmth of other people, the wall behind me. Hear the rustling of the girl's dress. There was something family, real about it. Very warm. Naruto seemed calm, unshakably confident. However, Itachi saw how her shoulders trembled slightly from every rude shout on the street, how she involuntarily shrank and cast a cautious glance towards the closed window when something hit it again. There's no need to be afraid. He caught her hand and felt the wreath on her wrist beating furiously. We can protect you. I'm not afraid, Date Bayo. Naruto gently released her hand and began arranging the plates. It used to be scary, but now I'm used to it. Itachi felt uneasy at the casualness with which she said this phrase. A little girl shouldn't say that. There shouldn't be such a look of doom or melancholy. I understand them. She glanced at the window. They suffered in that attack. Many lost their families, friends, and loved ones. Many lost their homes and became crippled. But it's not your fault, Sasuke exclaimed, to immediately receive a slap on the head with a towel. Do not scream. Naruto shushed. Don't make them even more angry. Itachi looked with wide eyes at the unexpectedly grown-up girl. What an inspiration! The beast is not hidden inside Naruto. The real animals are out there. And they are poisoning the only person. Oh, no need to look at me like that. The girl squinted slyly. I'm not worried at all, Date Bayo. Tomorrow it will all be over. Better think about what we will do all day. Itachi looked at the sleeping children with an almost imperceptible smile. The day turned out to be busy. First they played shogi. We found out that it is useless to play with Naruto, since her logic cannot be comprehended and analyzed. She just does what she wants. And he still wins. As Shursui would say, the absence of logic also has its own logic. Then there were blind man's buff with clones, training in illusions. We even got to Ayadori. It's not surprising that Itachi went out to the kitchen for a minute to get water, and when he returned, he found the guys sleeping on the floor. They were simply knocked out where they stood. Naruto's narrow bed was pushed up against the wall so that at least 2 people could fit on it. First, Itachi loaded the Otuto there, knowing that he would press himself against the wall and sleep like that all night, and therefore would not disturb Naruto. The student weighed almost nothing, skin and bones. And also amazingly hot, as if the temperature had risen. Itachi lightly touched the girl's forehead with his lips. Nothing. It must be the demon inside. He straightened up and was about to lie down on the floor to sleep, when suddenly Naruto grabbed his sleeve. Achi, don't go! She muttered sleepily, smacking her lips funny. The Uchiha sighed, pushed the guys aside and lay down on the edge, hugging the girl around the waist. Later, he will definitely cover the guys with a blanket and go to bed on the floor. But that will come later. But for now you can remove the unruly strands from the girl's forehead, carefully undo the braids so as not to disturb her. Surely your head will hurt in the morning. And enjoy the warmth that spreads inside from just the sight and presence of her nearby. For a moment she opened her eyes slightly. The look was surprisingly clear. This is my best birthday. She sighed happily, smiled and hugged him tightly. Itachi felt his lips stretch into a wide, answering smile.